The Koenigsegg One-to-One has a perfect power-to-weight ratio. Now, if you don't already know, Koenigsegg is a Swedish car company that produces some of the fastest cars this world has ever seen. They have named themselves mega car producers, and I'm not inclined to disagree with them on that one. And more on why I don't disagree will come later in this video. They produce very few cars, and each car they produce has an exorbitant price tag, though I wouldn't necessarily say that a high price isn't warranted for these vehicles. Each of their vehicles achieve astounding levels of performance, look good enough to make James Bond say damn, and take about 600 hours to assemble and up to 1200 hours to paint. So while I do think their prices are too high, I do understand why they would charge a high price. Two of their most popular cars are the Koenigsegg Agera and Regera, both of which are quite popular in the Need for Speed video games. The Agera was actually the star of the Need for Speed movie and is probably the more popular of the two. The company was started in 1994 by a man named Christian von Koenigsegg, who had one goal in mind: to build his dream car. He wanted to build a car that made no compromises when it came to performance, and I'd say that it's clear he did. In my opinion, though it may not be true, I've always felt that Koenigsegg is always the one to knock Bugatti off of their high horse. Each time Bugatti broke a record, Koenigsegg was right there on their heels, forcing Bugatti to innovate and improve, which by extension also forced Koenigsegg to do the same. Competition is always, of course, great for us, the consumer. The Koenigsegg One-to-One, yes, it is pronounced like that, is a car that achieves a power-to-weight ratio of 1-to-1, though not in freedom units. It is built upon the platform of the Agera. It shares several things in common with the Agera R. There are, of course, several different versions of the Agera. There is the R, the S, the RS, the Final Edition, and the One-to-One. I personally think the One-to-One is the most impressive of them. In fact, I feel the One-to-One is to Koenigsegg as the Aventador SVJ is to Lamborghini. You can check my previous video out for more information on that. But they are both truly monstrous cars that helped gain their respective brands respect and attention. The One-to-One produces 1,341 horsepower and weighs in at 1,360 kilograms, which is about 3,000 pounds. Right now, you're probably thinking to yourself that this doesn't amount to a power to weight ratio of 1-to-1, and that's because it doesn't, at least not when it's measured in these units. In order for the 1-to-1 power to weight ratio to be realized, the power of the 1-to-1 must be measured in units of Viertelstarke, which is a German unit used for measuring power. One Viertelstarke is about 0.986 horsepower, and the car produces one Viertelstarke for each kilogram that it weighs. Now, in freedom units, this car would have a power to weight ratio of 2.24 pounds per horsepower. In my article and video about power to weight ratios, I classified the power to weight ratio of a twin turbo LS1 swapped Miata as terrifyingly fast and absurd, and that was a power to weight ratio of 2.34 pounds per horsepower. The One-to-One has an even better power to weight ratio. Most people, including me, aren't able to even fathom how crazy this is. The One-to-One makes more power per pound than a twin turbo LS1 Miata, which for all intents and purposes is a death trap. The acceleration offered by the One-to-One would be something out of this world to experience, and according to its reviewers, it is nothing short of insane. Words really can't do it justice. As far as I can tell, this is the only production street legal car that has a power to weight ratio of 1-to-1, despite it not being achieved in standard units. The Bugatti Bolide does have a better power to weight ratio, but it isn't street legal. To be fair, although the One-to-One is technically a production car, at least as far as I can tell, there were only 7 of them produced, 2 of which went to Europe, 4 to Asia, and 1 to the USA. Koenigsegg has proclaimed that the One-to-One is a megacar because it outputs 1 megawatt of power, and I somewhat agree. I'd say that the class of super or hypercar wouldn't do the One-to-One justice. It deserves to be in a class of its own, hence megacar. The One-to-One is powered by a 5-liter twin-turbo V8 that produces 1,341 horsepower when fueled with E85 and 1161 horsepower when fueled with pump gas. Some people may be disappointed by hearing that max power can only come from E85, sorry, but I think that making over 1100 horsepower on pump gas is just ridiculous for a stock car. This motor is mated to a 7-speed automatic dual-clutch transmission, and the car is fitted with an electronic differential. And of course, the engine and transmission were specially designed by Koenigsegg for this car. To achieve these performance numbers, the turbos can build up to an insane 26.1 pounds of boost, and the rev limiter is set all the way to 8250 RPM, which will really let that boost build. Additionally, the motor makes 738 pound-feet of torque from 3000 all the way to 8000 RPM, peaking at 1011 pound-feet, which give this car one hell of a power curve. This allows the 1-to-1 to move from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 2.9 seconds, though Car and Driver did actually estimate it at 2.5. This is insane. This is an insane feat because very few stock cars can achieve sub 3 seconds, and it becomes even more incredible when you realize what else this car is capable of. The 1-to-1 achieved an official 0 to 300 kilometers per hour to 0 time of 17.95 seconds, and Koenigsegg themselves estimate that it could complete a 0 to 400 to 0 in 30 seconds. For reference, the Bugatti Chiron completes the 0 to 400 to 0 in 41.96 seconds, which should put the impressive performance of the 1-to-1 in perspective. The only thing more impressive than its acceleration might be its aerodynamics. With this kind of power, the 1-to-1 can and will spin its tires at triple-digit speeds, as many reviewers have already stated. However, because of its aerodynamics, this car actually gets noticeably more grip the faster it goes, according to its reviewers. During a test run, a Car and Driver writer said the acceleration got even faster after 160 kilometers per hour, and the grip got even better because of the downforce being produced. At 250 kilometers per hour, the 1-to-1's aerodynamics produced 1,345 pounds of downforce, which is essentially a small car pushing down on the 1-to-1. And I've saved the largest number for last, and you may be wondering what number could be larger than the horsepower, and that, my friend, is the price. In 2015, the 1-to-1 was going for about 4 million Canadian dollars or 2.8 million USD, and there's no telling how much more that price has risen since, both because of inflation and the fact that there are only 7 of these produced. Oh, and I'll leave you with this as a final thought. The 1-to-1 achieved all of this back in 2015.